Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Sandrine Bardot. I'm going to be your host for today. I am joined by three panelists today. This is our second webinar together. We have, I'm going to start with the gentleman today. So we have Enad, who's a reward director at Vision Bank, Pavithra, who's global head of reward at DAR, and Susan, who's executive director of people and culture at Emil Wolf. If you want to learn more about us, go watch the first webinar on the Semos Cloud YouTube channel. And we will dive into it because we have 1 hour and we have a lot to cover. Today's topics are employee segmentation and personalization of rewards, as well as AI and total rewards. But first, I'm going to start with addressing 1 or 2 questions that we received at the end of the first panel. So the first one, I'm going to answer myself. We got a question from Amira, who was saying, with the global cost consciousness and companies driving optimization, a lot of companies are moving a lot of non-customer facing roles from the Gulf to lower cost markets. And so how can companies still create more jobs in the Gulf instead of moving them elsewhere? So my view on that, Amira, is that yes, salaries in the Gulf might be more expensive than in some of our neighboring countries, obviously. However, direct salary is not the only element that an employer is going to decide when they are arbitraging where to locate the different position if they're on a international organization. And so basically, if you think of Europe, you would say that on top of the salary, there are employer social security costs that might be up to 50%. In France, they are 50% of the salary of the employee on top. Plus, salary costs are not the only driver, right? Employers are going to look at the variety of talent, the facility to attract talent in certain locations. They are going to look at, depending on the kind of industry you're in. But for example, in the Gulf, we are in a region which is very well placed from a distribution standpoint. We have huge markets around us within 4 to 6 hours of flight in Africa, in Asia, China, Europe. And so companies are not looking just at the salaries of employees. And that's why the UAE and other Gulf countries are still attractive to a lot of not just people, but also organizations. So I'm going to say, for example, when you have an environment where maybe the legislative environment is a little bit unstable. So I think about the recent announcement a few days ago that the US is going to impose $100,000 fee on the H-1B visas, which is mostly affecting Indian engineers and tech people, for them to go there, while you have countries in the GCC whose whole model is built on immigration of talent, whether skilled or unskilled as well. So obviously that makes it easier for a company to operate in an environment like the Gulf because there is no such change into the environment. So all sorts of different things that come into place. And that's why even though salaries might be more expensive, let's say, than in India or China or African countries in the Gulf, they're still attracting and a good place for a lot of organizations to establish. So that would be my view on that one. We also got a question from Hoi Wong, who was asking, how do you use equity to reward your people? So, for example, do you target at certain levels? How much of the package do you make of equity versus cash? So I would like to ask Susan to answer this question and share maybe an example, please.
Yeah, sure. Excuse me. Give me 1 second. Okay, so equity. So first of all, who asked the question? What's the gentleman's name?
Hoi Wong.
Hoi Wong. So thank you for your question. And so big picture, first of all, when should you use equity? I think when there's a clear line of sight between the individual's contribution and the overall success of the business and stakeholder value creation, right? So you need to think carefully first about why you're doing it is the first question before you think how do you do it. So what you're trying to achieve, you know, as a business. I think that a lot of organisations in the past, and certainly where I've worked, it started out very much as a hierarchical thing. You know, it was part of executive pay. Your CEO, your exco, and maybe one or two others would receive equity as part of their overall package. But over the years, that has evolved, and it's become a little bit more nuanced in terms of that there will still be that level in hierarchy and seniority, because at the end of the day, if you're more senior, you should have more impact in the overall business results and the share price and whatnot. But I think as time has gone on, it's also targeting what business outcomes you're trying to achieve, and that might be a particular skill set, for example, to retain that particular skill set. It might be to retain people during or post M&A activity. So I've seen it used as a tool for retention during specific events, as well as just generally to achieve business results. I think in terms of the mix, it really depends on the nature of your business, your industry, the type of job, and you would be looking at. For me, it's not just about how much should your equity be; it should be what is the overall comp that you want to pay, and how much of that do you want to defer for the future, and for the person to have that future reward, so that they're focused on bigger, longer term goals and looking at the pay mix. And you know, you can get stats on this. You can get, and I don't have any to hand. I didn't know this question was coming today, but there is information out there to say in different industries what that could look like at different levels. What could it look like? And I think you need to be nuanced about it, like I mentioned. First of all, big picture, what am I trying to achieve? What roles will this impact? Therefore, what people? Look at your overall, all of your data, not just your pay. You know, how does it link to your talent reviews? How does it link to succession? How does it link to, is it critical roles, high potential individuals? I'll give you an example of where I've used it in a bank in the UAE, and it was for Emiratization purposes as well, and targeting high potential Emirati talent at all levels, not just senior people. Also used in post-merger for retention issues as well. So there's a few examples. Yeah, hope that's helpful.
Okay, thank you. Pav or Enad, do you want to add something? Yes, Pav.
Go ahead, Enad.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Pav.
Okay, thank you. The one which I wanted to add, I mean, everything I agree with Susan. Where I wanted to add, Sandrine, was your question on the one you took was very interesting for me, which was moving people to lower cost countries, right? Just as a reminder to everyone, this has been there as part of the commercial solution providing across the world for, I don't know, even before I came in, right? The software did it well 30 years ago, and then backend support did it. So I don't think there is a trend right now. It always existed. Even a lot of UAE companies who are based out of UAE, who make money in the UAE, have a outsourcing unit either in Asian countries or Philippines, for example, right? This is a model which always has existed, and it will continue to exist because that adds a lot of commercial value to any business. So I don't think it is new, right? Secondly, if it happens, typically the way I have seen it is minimum 3 to 5 years is when companies keep reviewing their financials, and that is when they continue to make such adjustments on talent to say, okay, what do we need here, and what can we outsource it or send it to another country where it is lower in terms of cost of living, therefore lower in terms of hiring talent out there. right? The typical roles, but that doesn't mean that all our roles are going to go, right? We're all going to stay here, just to let you know. And so will a lot of other roles. There are clients who are demanding people to be in the country. I mean, you have seen, right? Saudi demands companies to have headquarters in Saudi. UAE demands some of their companies to have a base in UAE, and that those companies doesn't mean one CEO, right? He can't operate them. So there is always a team which is required here, and there's always specialization which is required. And if I come close to home, which is reward people, I don't think it is possible to outsource completely. Well, there are a lot of people who are capable, who can do offline Middle Eastern reward, but there are still companies who always continue to focus on the talent here, and what they can provide living here. The reality of living in the place and then designing frameworks is very different to someone who's sitting outside. We are a lot more quick, and we are a lot more contextually aware of what is happening. So the value we add, correct me if I'm wrong, would be far bigger than someone who is out of the market, right? And especially Middle East is such a up and down market. I mean, you talk about Egypt, right? Someone spoke about Egypt in the comments. Well, we know the currency devaluations and how things keep moving and changing, and how we are, because we live with them. We live with a lot of Egyptians in the country. We have people working with us in our own offices, right? So it helps bring in a lot of contextual requirement for any job we do. So I am sure that's not the answer you were expecting. It's only natural for this to happen. It's going to come down and it will stabilize.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I mean, if you consider things, yes, I know there is a lot of hype about companies reacting very quickly to trends and having to adapt from one quarter to the next because they're listed in the public markets and they have to communicate to the investors every quarter. And that's also why we see on a global business, on a global level, a movement to delist, because companies are realizing that this constant pressure to communicate and make decisions focuses their attention on the very short term, which is the next quarter, instead of looking at long term. Organizations do value a stable environment. And yes, there are cost considerations, but if you're unsure of the stability of the environment in which other people might be recruited, and the availability of enough talent to fulfill your needs as well, because not everywhere will you find tons of specialized skills if you need those specialized skills. And I'm not talking just comp and ben, could be any kind of skill. So organizations plan for the long term, because once they're set up, it's very difficult to go and set up somewhere else. And so I don't think it's like, oh, salaries are cheaper at the moment in this country, let's recruit everyone there, or let's send our current employees there. People's lives are not upended so easily, and there's a reality of what can be done.
As well
Anyways,
as businesses, right, Sandrine? I mean, it's not, we are human beings. We carry a lot of
yes.
Unwritten or not documented knowledge along the company
Yes.
and along our journey, right?
Yeah.
Losing such talent, and yes, they can replace overnight, great, but continuation is going to get impacted. There are a lot of times where those knee-jerk reactions have been made, and then they go ahead, fire these people, recruit there.
Yes.
It takes more time, and it is proven again and again and again. It's better to retain your people who have been with you than go ahead and recruit just because of commercial reasons.
Yeah.
So if companies are doing it, I would ask them to consider the talent loss, consider the knowledge loss, and understand the risk before they do it.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to move on because this was not part of the main topic of today's webinar. Just Enad, if you want to add something on the equity question, and then we will move to the employee segmentation?
Yeah, very, very quick point to what Susan mentioned, because I believe when we talk about equity and how much to invest in equity for our employees, we need to answer maybe one very critical and essential question, which is why we're doing it, why we need to introduce it, why we need to initiate such reward plan. We need to understand, do we need to retain existing employees, and who are they, at what level? Do we need to focus on high-level employees or all employees across all levels using maybe different types of equity plans? And also we need to look at the other side from shareholders' point of view. What's their appetite? Because at the end, it's like you're taking from their ownership to reward your people. So purpose, answering the why, and also understanding the appetite of the shareholders are very important questions to answer before you start initiating any equity reward plan.
Okay, thank you so much, Enad. I'm going to continue with you because I think there's kind of a little bit of a connection in the purpose aspect. So in your view, what's the most kind of practical way to start thinking about segmenting rewards in the GCC? Is it by job level, performance, by generation, by gender? Is it something completely different? How would you approach it? How would you think about that?
So the current practice, I believe, in most of organizations in the GCC region is that they focus on the demographic details of employees. They focus on the performance level, on the job level. But the question is that enough? Does that let's say satisfy the need or what employees are looking for? So what I believe is we need to focus on really what matters the most to our employees. Like, for example, we need to understand their priorities. Is it family? Is it flexibility? Is it development, career progression? Is it financials or health or anything else? So that's how we need to start looking at segmentation, because people who are really superstars and high performers definitely will not have the same exact needs. So we need to differentiate between them based on their maybe life stage, or maybe lifestyle, or their need for cash or financial stability, or even job stability. So the way of segmenting people needs to be different today, and also because of the all the changes when it comes to demographics at the workplace. Definitely, we cannot have 100 or 200 different reward plans for people to choose from, because this also will affect the effectiveness and also the burden, and also the time spent to administer and to maintain all these rewards. So I believe what needs to be done is that we embed technology to help us really understand what kind of people we have, what matters the most to them, and we start personalize the rewards. It's like maybe building, instead of having a very rigid reward packages, you need to make it like a Spotify playlist. The employee could choose from there based on what matters to them, what they value the most.
Yeah, thank you so much. Susan, do you want to add something?
Yeah, everything Enad said makes total sense. And I think that segmentation, let's make no mistake, it exists here in the GCC and has existed for a very long time. It's just, does that segmentation now make sense? Does it work for the population that we have and our employees and what we're trying to achieve as a business? So it's not new. It's just that it needs to change. And so currently, and in the past, and for many still currently, benefits are segmented, like Enad said, based on your demographic, where you come from, your marital status, how many children you have. That dictates your benefits, what country you came from. So if Pav and I and Enad and Sandrine all do the same job, but we come from a different country, our airfare ticket will have a different value. Yeah. So segmentation has been around for a very long time, but it's based on nationality, it's based on hierarchy and seniority and job level. Are those the right things that we still want to segment on? Are those the right factors? And going back to the much bigger point that Enad said, is what we're trying to achieve, what's the purpose, what's the why? And then you get into, you know, details such as, you know, what problems are we trying to fix, what we're trying to solve for, what's the business imperative, what value are we trying to drive, what constraint are we trying to solve, you know? And then also, what risk might we create by doing that? So there's, start with the questions and start with the big one, and then you get down into the smaller ones. But I think there has been a shift away from, if you like, those whether it be nationality, job level, marital status, and all of those things. Because if you, for example, don't have children, you won't get education allowance. Well, what about the people who don't? Do you give them something else? That if you do, that increases costs. So for me, the journey is segmentation currently and in the past has been driven by those things that I've said, and the employer has chosen to do that. And why have they chosen to do that? And then we're moving towards a little bit of personalisation to an extent. But what Enad was talking about, and having a Spotify playlist, I like that. I'm going to use that again, Enad, thank you. That's flexible benefits that have been around for a long time. And we've touched on this before, Sandrine, we spoke about it a lot. I've worked on it a few times, not in this region. Spoke about it at a conference back in 2020, I don't know, 2002. I think one time when I met Sandrine way back in the day. So, you know, it's not new, but that's what Enad's talking about. But what does that look like here? And as a business, what problem are we trying to solve? How do we link it to our EVP? How do we link it to our brand? How do we link it to all the other stuff that, you know, we touched on earlier today? But what all of this hinges on, once you've figured all of that out, is HR capability, line management capability, comms and governance, all of those things, which I'm sure we'll come on to. Yes. So I'll leave it there and not jump ahead, Sandrine.
Okay. Pav, did you want to add something?
No, I mean alignment, they've covered everything. But if I have to summarize it, context is everything with segmentation. Following market blindly is not going to give you the result. You can that is a great starting point than starting from zero, right? You don't have to learn everything from how to turn a wheel to constructing the entire car, right? You can take, okay, what are the cars available, and then figure out, well, how can I customize it? That's a lot more easier and faster. Context of employees and as well as context of business, both come in hand. Just to give an example, somewhere in the UAE itself, Dubai and Abu Dhabi salaries were huge. There is still a difference. The difference used to be huge because of housing market back in, I don't know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it was very evident in every data possible. But slowly and certainly, many companies have smoothened it out because there is no need of such differentiation anymore. Adaptation is key, and reviewing, as Susan mentioned, reviewing and ensuring that it still works for both employee and as well as business is key. One thing, I mean, I'm a recent mother, 7 years. One thing which I've always thought of, like, why should married people get more salary versus single, right? I've been single and now I'm married and stuff. The philosophy was very simple. Back then, whenever all of this expat packages, even today it happens across companies, multinational companies, when they're sending people to difficult countries. UAE was not today's UAE. When they had to send people, they had to make sure that they take care of everything. The only way you can transfer, this is no matter which culture, where you go and which countries you go, if you want to send someone and uproot their life from where they are to a most difficult or unknown places, you have to make sure you take care of everything possible. from not only just providing housing allowance, you have to also give them housing, make sure it is close to house, make sure they can accommodate their size of family, make sure they have correct visas. I mean, companies go to every extent, make sure the candidate and family come and visit during their recruitment process to make sure they understand what is happening, they meet the schools and they have the seats. Like, if you need the talent, if it is scarcity in the market, and if the market is difficult to send expats, you have to do everything. And that's when the differentiation between married and single came along. Now, is it right? Is it wrong? That depends on each company, where they are, where the demographics are, which was covered already. Can be tested, can be tweaked, and adapted as it needs. But the argument which I always counter back is that married people don't get more because they have kids. Married people have more expenses for them to move, and company wants them to move. Therefore, they take care of little more than the single person. End of the day,
and Pav, that's all fine if it's business driven. So your examples, it's trying to attract people, whether it to be specifically to the UAE or the broader region. And of course, in terms of the broader region, there is still parts that maybe are less attractive for some to live and to work and to bring up their children, but not the UAE, you know,
right.
And not
the context of UAE has changed.
I would say not anymore of a UAE.
Yeah, not anymore.
Well, yeah, not anymore. Yeah. So that rationale no longer stands. But I agree with you and understand the history and all of those things. And but also it's that choice thing, and it's what's the driver for it. In your examples, correctly, I agree with it all. The driver is the organisation wants to take someone from their office in Hong Kong or London or Zurich or wherever to come to the Middle East. But if you're the individual and you want to be, and you're the driver for it, like you've made the decision to be married or you've made the decision to have 4 children, that's your choice. It's not the business decision. So all of these factors, I'm not saying one is more important than the other, but they all need to be taken into account. And the world that we lived in then isn't the world that we live in now. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, as I started, context is everything, right?
Yes. That's exactly.
So that's the history.
Yeah.
Now, do we want it? Is a question we need to ask.
So just to conclude on that, I'm just going to wrap it up by giving just a piece of practical advice to our listeners. So as we've been saying, at the moment, most organizations already practice their segmentation, even if they don't really realize that. And it's based mostly on demographics, right? It's based on the employee's nationality, gender, grade, or job level, sometimes performance, and so on. I think if you want to go a little bit beyond in terms of segmentation without getting into any kind of super sophisticated tools that maybe you don't have access to, there is an easy way to think about driving potentially segmentation, is to think about the employee life cycle in your company. So things you do at the time of onboarding, things you do when maybe you're transferring somebody laterally, when you're promoting somebody, when the employee gets married, when the employee gets a child, if the employee gets divorced, if you're transferring to another country, all the cases maybe for retirement and so on, and maybe try to anticipate those. And one of the things that you can easily do is not change necessarily anything that you have, but customize the communication that you have towards those employee groups. Target those employee groups so you don't send a blast to all employees, but only to employees who are in that certain, say, life cycle or stage in their life in the company, to remind them that, hey, as you're acquiring a house, and we know because you've applied for a loan for a loan from the company or something like that, so you have a trigger that enables you to say, hey, we could launch some communication, and you can personalize it further by not doing that by launching a communication to a group of people all at the same time, but each time that each employee hits that certain trigger. That's very easy today to do with email. If you don't have any email tool, you can easily prepare a few things in an Excel sheet that allows you with the templates, and you just do it manually if that's what you have to do. Or you can do an automation in AI, very simple. But that's a different way for you to think without getting into sophisticated surveys, the weighing of the different choices, of the employee preferences, and so on, because you can easily spend a lot of time into that. So we have kind of alluded to the point a little bit, but when you move into a more, let's say, subtle element or in-depth element of segmentation, a lot of organizations will try to focus on the talent that they want to keep first, right? Because typically that's how you prioritize. And the talent you're going to want to keep is probably going to be along the lines of high performers, high potentials, and so on. So we have to be wary of maybe some employee populations feeling that maybe there is a favoritism coming into play. I'm going to allude as well in our region maybe of differences based on the nationality. And I'm thinking especially between nationals and expats. If you work in semi-government or government entities, there is a clear differentiation between what the citizens of the country and the expats are getting. It's less obvious in maybe the private sector, at least for the time being. But so does any one of you, and just show me with your hand, have you ever seen or had to face any kind of situation where employees were challenging some of the decisions or the compensation designs implemented by the organizations because they felt that somehow one element wasn't really fair? I know Susan has already alluded to that, so I'll start with her. And then if Pav or Enad wants to add something, we can continue there.
Do you want me to give an example?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I've got a good example because it really, I don't want to say upset, but certainly made me question a lot of things when I came to know this happened. So in this part of the world, most people here will know that all expats will get some sort of flight allowance to go home, right? And at the more just junior level, I came to know that people doing the same job, because of some historical things, no business rationale, no rationale based on the job, no rationale based on performance. It was just all about hierarchy and level and possibly a little bit of nationality, received that benefit only once every 2 years rather than once per year. So Enad and I could be sat doing the same job in the same office, and because of some historical, maybe contractual thing, or I was previously outsourced, that, and for me that's a fundamental, it's fundamental. Forget what the benefit is and the value of it and the purpose of it, but it's a well-known benefit in this part of the world, and to only give it to some individuals on a not semi-annually, every second year, whatever term for every second year, once every 2 years rather than once every year, was fundamentally unfair. And people spoke up about it, and we fixed it. But of course, that costs money, and you need to, have a good rationale and everything, or try and pull money from somewhere else to make it cost neutral. But that's just to give you an example of where segmentation, based on a really loose rationale about some history and context that now made no sense. Starting with Pav, your point about context. And we changed it, but people spoke up about it, and it was just about fairness and equity and doing the right thing. So hopefully that brings to life an example where segmentation based on really no proper rationale didn't work.
Enad or Pav, any additional thoughts? I see Enad going yes.
Yeah, you agree with me, Enad?
I totally agree with you, because I've experienced similar thing, and to be honest, it's the same exact
Or no,
experience
is it the same
with the
example?
same benefit being paid to employees, some employees annually and other employees once every 2 years.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it just demotivates. It's just not fair. I mean,
exactly. Oh,
if you choose to have that benefit, then implement it fairly. There could be debate about why you have it and the way you do it, whatever. But the point is, if you have it and that's the way you choose to do it, implement it fairly.
100%. What I believe when we do segmentation, and if we have really a rationale behind the way we segment our people or we categorize our people, we need to support it with narrative. We need to support it with storytelling. We need to support it with communication. We need to transfer this rationale to other people, because at the end, not all people are HR people, right? They don't understand just looking at the design of that reward plan, why it's being designed the way it's designed. So we need to communicate that to them, and we have to be transparent, and we understand, especially in our region, when we talk about transparency, especially in rewards, that's a huge gap. But we need really to start looking at this and to communicate to people why we're designing rewards in the way it's designed. This will really help us to avoid employees look at it like, okay, it's a favoritism, and the company is giving advantage to some employees based on something mysterious, or it's not clear for them. So the way we communicate it is very, very important. The way you make it clear for people how you will be eligible for this, why these people, why not you, that's very, very important. And I think maybe technology can help us today more than ever, that we can communicate in real time with our employees. You're eligible for this, you're not eligible for this, and why. And based on the segmentation we're building, based on the categories we're building, and what are the factors that we're taking to build that segment and to design the reward plan for them. So I believe storytelling very, very important, and maybe the line manager is the important person to be involved in this, because in our region, the direct managers or the direct supervisors, still there is a gap. They don't or they cannot, most of them, they cannot handle pay conversation very well with their employees. So we need to support them, maybe train them, make them aware, understand all the details of the way we design our reward framework or reward plans. And also, we don't want them to be like negotiators. We want them just to be storytellers. We want them to be an explainers for their employees, not negotiators. They're not there to negotiate with their employees to be eligible for a reward plan or not. That's maybe an HR responsibility to design that reward plan. But we need their support, because I believe direct managers are the are the HR managers for their staff, for their team.
Yeah. Very good point. Pavithra, anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I want to talk about a contradicting example, right? We all strive for fairness, right? I mean, everything which Susan and Enad and we all spoke about, right? Make sure it is fair to everyone and stuff. There was once a time we were reviewing air tickets, right, which is a common benefit in this part of the world. The principles were set that we want to make sure that everybody on a direct flight go back to their home once a year, and these are the airlines we benchmark with and make sure. So the process was very formula driven to make sure it is fair and everything is done right. However, the reaction was completely different, because what happens with airlines is the pricing is dynamic, right? Once it's too high, once it's too less. So you take non-peak hours and do all of that science, only to realize the air fare, which was set, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever, legacy rates, was very different. Some were getting higher, some were getting lower. Now we said, let's make it fair, get it to today's rate, and make sure we review every 2 years, right? It was fair, it was consistent. This is how we want our policies to be. However, this is super emotional for the business we were talking about. We were not talking about white collar, we were talking about blue collar workers, right? Where it means a lot more than the principles we were trying to set. They were ready to take 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stops to go home, but they would rather do it 2 times, some people, right, versus others based on their choice once to their country, right? So there was huge backlash. Obviously, people who got more, they were happy. I'm like, finally, you heard us that it doesn't cover our air ticket, and you're changing it. But obviously, people who got lower, I think, if I'm not exaggerating, I have got letters for almost 1 year, even after we taking it back. So we went back to this option was already given to the management, saying we don't recommend you to reduce it, right? Because we're dealing with blue collar workers and it is super sensitive. So if you want to make it fair, add it to more for people who are not getting enough for them to go visit once a year, but continue the legacy rates what you have so that you don't disrupt the organization. But they were like, no, we have to be fair. It's fair world, and let's make sure everything is fair and get it right. We're like, this is going to cause havoc in the company. It's not going to go down well. And they said, no, we are with you, we will stand by this, and then go ahead. I think they themselves, every executive had people knocking at their door every day almost to explain how important that benefit was and the payment was. It was not even released, it was not paid, it was not deducted, nothing. Just a communication which went out, and it caused chaos. We took back in less than 1 week, but the conversation didn't stop. 1 whole year I have spent my life explaining, we are not taking it away, we are not taking it away, we are not taking it away. While execs laughed at me, as like, Pav, you warned me, but we have to do what we think is right. That's why we pay for you, right? So not all decisions, how much ever we want fairness, are always made like that. It also depends on the impact which people have, and also the cost, right? We were not saving any huge cost by doing that. It was not a big deal from a commercial point of view. So why take such risk? That is a story which I will never forget.
I want to rebound on that. So I once had, just to share another story, I once had a client who was the CHRO. So this was a new position. The company was a family-owned organization that used to be very decentralized. They create corporate functions, and they put the former CEO of the largest business to become the CHRO of the group. And after 1 year, 15 months of me working with them as an advisor, they asked me to facilitate a team building exercise. So we went to Morocco for 1 week, the whole HR team. We met for the first time and so on. And at dinner, the CHRO says to me, look, Sandrine, I don't understand. I've led this largest, most complex business of the whole organization for years, and I find that HR is so much more difficult. And I laughed and I said, you have the typical syndrome of the business person who's moving into HR and realizing that you cannot give orders in the same way in HR that you do if you're CEO. If you're CEO, you say, do this, your team members are going to say, yes, boss, and then give it to somebody else on their team to do the work, and then something will be presented to you. In HR, you're dealing with people. People are complex. People are not machine. They have emotions. They have different types of motivation. We have the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. We have all these biases that people have and that are affecting how they perceive things. You have personal history and so on. And the complexity of dealing with people versus dealing with vast amounts of numbers, which are complicated, but that are kind of logical and can be adjusted in a logical way, is much more difficult when you're dealing with people. I'm going to use this as my transition to move into the next topic, which is the topic of total rewards and AI, because I do believe on a personal level that so far what we've seen being discussed in terms of AI and human resources, a lot of it is about talent acquisition, a lot of it is about HR support and all those things. And why? Because in the beginning stages of a recruitment process, For example, if you receive 1,000 resumes for one open job, the first job that you do as a recruiter, whether you're an ATS, a piece of software, or a human doing that job, is go through the resumes and parse based on certain criteria to eliminate some CVs automatically. And then you put them through a filter until you have a smaller amount of CVs that you will really pay attention to based on filters. So those are based on rules, right? And the rest of human resources, we do have some rules, but there's also this human element coming into play, I believe. So one of the things that I would say I found very interesting is that as much as I think that in Total Rewards, we tend to be one of the more advanced HR function when it comes to technology, not being scared of numbers, not being scared of HR systems and so on. We often have to manage the HR systems as well. We've also found a little bit of reluctance from organizations to implement AI in Total Rewards. And that's due to the sensitive nature of the data that we handle, because pay information is a very sensitive set of data. Whether you're in Europe, where you have all those rules about GDPR and the new pay transparency laws and all these elements that are impacting how you have to communicate to candidates, to existing employees, to your boards, to trade unions and so on, but even just generally speaking, I mean, for everybody, that's a sensitive piece of information. So I guess I will start with a first question. I'm going to direct it at Pavithra to get started. Have you or somebody on your team tried any kind of small, unofficial maybe, or maybe official AI experiments in the realm of Total Rewards? And if not, why not? And if yes, what did you try to do, and what's kind of your learning from it?
I remember a sentence which one of my teammate keeps repeating. It's neither artificial nor intelligent. It's just a machine learning. It's just our Excel sheets with a lot of data trying to predict what you would say. It's as simple as that, right? I hope she appreciates. She's like, I want you to talk about this. Yeah, so we have tried multiple times with multiple so-called AI tools, whether it is ChatGPT, Gemini, and there are a lot of other presentation websites, right? One thing which AI is really good is qualitative information. So it really helps you research faster than you having to go through every website, make a note, make an Excel sheet, come up with a summary. That's a lot more easier now. It can help us bring that information, source that information from various websites, and give us a holistic view of what it is, what's a typical trend is. It's really good for redrafting communication. It's really good for projects like your job description. It's not click of a button though, but it's I mean, if you have to create, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 jobs, it used to take 2 to 3 months for 2 to 3 people to sit and make sure everything is aligned. It's a humongous job, right? But that can be substantially reduced. Now, one person can do within a month, right? Which is a lot more standardized, a lot more systemized. There is thinking behind it, there is metrics behind it, and framework, right? However, when it comes to Excel, it's always been a failure. It's a long way to go when it comes to Excel. You can do competency frameworks. It's great for talent management. It's great for everything else. Now, which is where it becomes interesting. The moment Excel becomes easier, I think our roles will change.
Yeah.
We will no more be a reward. We'll be generalist framework designers for everything, whether it is talent management, reward management, you call it. Right? So for now, Excel sheet has been really bad luck. Correct me if I'm any wrong. I'm more than happy to hear. But everything else, thinking is easier, faster. Yes, of course, you have to always test. I never take AI by its whatever it says as an output. Sometimes you have to ask questions in multiple ways to understand where the thinking is coming from. But all of that you will learn the more you use AI. but still it saves at least 30% of time when it is thinking, researching, drafting kind of task, comparing kind of task, which are very tedious and long time solutions. So it definitely is more efficient in that way. Excel, I think it is the reverse, where I have to put more people to work on it and make sure the data is right. So I would rather do my good old day, just use Excel, do the numbers the way I think is right, and then continue working. So that helps. Slides, another one, which is a great tool. AI is a great tool for slides. If people like storytelling, people like putting the business case together, it's a great tool.
Yeah. Enad?
Yeah, actually using AI, especially in the maybe banking sector and especially in Saudi, is very difficult. But we've tested AI in some small experiments, and it was very helpful, especially with the deep search option. And it was super helpful in benchmarking. When we talk about what are the new trends and employee benefits, or how certain companies and certain industries are rewarding their people, how they retain their people. So it's very helpful. Also, to be honest, back to the first question, maybe at the beginning of this session, employee segmentation. Also, it helps you when you explain what kind of workforce do you have, what kind of business values do you have, what's your direction, what's your strategy, how much do you want to invest in retaining your people or attracting people from the market. It really helps you to give you some insights on how to do that segmentation and how to design reward plans that really supports your goal. But I support Pavithra on this. Excel, no way. We're still the Excel guru here as Total Rewards. But yes, I think in the future we will see AI helps us more in analyzing data and getting insights from our data. But so far it's mostly on benchmarking, research, maybe helping us how to categorize and segment people. That's very helpful with AI.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Susan, you want to add something?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what everyone said. Yeah, exact same thing. You more use it for words rather than numbers. Yeah. And also I would say I use it as your thought buddy, you know, just to think things through. So for example, I was doing some scenario planning, and I had thought about some scenarios myself, and I was going to go talk to someone to see, could you think of any other, but I did it with my friend, Claude. And Claude and I had a really good discussion, and we talked about other scenarios that we might want to think about. And then that makes you think of something else, and then you might get it to do a bit of research, and then, you know, so absolutely stuff like that. But is it churning out all the numbers for us? Is it giving us all the analysis and recommendations? No. But I think it'll get there. I have used it for some, you know, helping to think through improving processes, helping to think through maybe different workflows from different perspectives. So we currently have this workflow. This is the policy that supports that workflow. And I want you to map it out from a customer perspective, you know, whatever stakeholders, you know, from an HR perspective, from the employee perspective, and so on and so forth. So all of those things, I think we can use them from. When it's fully integrated, I mean, for it to actually help you make faster decisions, to help you with pay transparency. There's one organisation I've spoken to that it's helped them with their pay equity analysis, because of course that data isn't on an individual basis. So feeding in data that's aggregated data. So to Sandrine's point at the beginning about, you know, the personal information, the nature of our job, lots of organisations are scared to, or don't want to, quite rightly, you would never put individual information. But if you've got aggregate, maybe you can use that, and it can give you some insights. And I've personally used it for things like summarising policies, helping me turn a policy into an FAQ, or talking points for a line manager, capability building session, something like that. And it just helps you do stuff faster, like Enad and Pav have said. But yeah, it's not building your macro yet, I don't think, for many people.
Although it can be good to help you if you know a function that you want to, and you say,
yes,
this is what trying to do. Here are my cells. Help me write the
formula.
But it does not understand if you feed it an Excel sheet. It does not. I mean, it understands causality and so on. I think it's much better for customer data sets rather than or sales data sets rather than employee pay information yet. So one of the things that I would say, so me personally, I've been using AI quite a lot, both on my consulting job and also with clients. And I agree, it's still very good for anything that is very word-based or language-based, okay? They're called language models. But I think the one thing that we need to be very careful of, because I've seen that tendency, especially at employees who maybe have fewer years of experience, is to just dump their question into AI and then do a copy paste, like maybe of the answer without really checking, okay? And especially when you start to have a longer conversation with the AI, you realize there's a lot of repeats, redundancies, things that don't necessarily make a lot of sense when you look at them into detail. And so you really have to think that at the moment, whether you're using Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot, if that's the one that your company has put, is that you need to think of AI as an intern, a very bright, a very smart AI, but who has never worked in real life, and so does not understand fully the question that you're asking in all its implications. So it will run to give you an answer, but that's not necessarily what you were looking for. And I think it forces us also to have more clarity on what we're expecting, because we need to describe what we're expecting, including the format of the output more clearly. And really, for me, that reminds me when I start working with either an intern or a new analyst who has never done this kind of work, and I need to go really step by step. And I realize sometimes that things that are obvious to me are not so obvious because the person is not doing them. The AI is exactly the same. So one of the things that I've used and that has helped a lot of clients, there is a free tool from Google. So depending, of course, what's allowed in your organization, but it's called Notebook LM. You can upload different sources into it. And if those sources, for example, are your HR policies and things like that, once you create that, you can create audios, you can create videos, you can create FAQs and so on, and people can chat with the source, just one source or multiple source or a combination or all of your sources that you've put in there. And so even those bots that we were building a few years ago, you know, like where you had to go and put, here's my employee holiday policy, and I need to create my FAQs. You don't need to create the FAQs anymore, because now just a simple tool like that allows you, for example, to share with all employees, and you can prevent anybody from changing the sources. It doesn't have many hallucinations because it's in-house. I mean, it's like only looking at those sources, not anything outside. And each person can create their own audio, can create their own chat, and so on. And so in terms of communication and personalization, in a way, if you put your policies in there, everybody can access those and get their answer very, very quickly. Or if you don't want to share it with the employees, give it to your HR employees. And even they will find that it's faster very often for them, unless they know on the top of their head because they've been doing the job for a long time. But even for onboarding your new employees, this is a very great way of getting started. And that's free tool. Anybody can access it online. So again, depending on your company restrictions in terms of what you can access on the internet. But that's been for me something which a lot of organizations didn't realize that they could so easily deploy and use with their employees. Now, do you think we had a little bit of debate with some of my friends? So job matching to salary survey is a big one, right? When you participate to a salary survey, you're supposed to match your jobs to those of the survey provider. Do you think AI will really be able to help us with that in the future? what would be your view? Very quickly, maybe yes or no, and a one sentence answer. I'm going to ask every one of you. I'm going to start with Pavithra.
In future, yes, not today.
Okay. Enad?
I think today, no, but in the future, they can, as an initial matching, yes, they can do it, but definitely human intervention should be there.
Agree. Susan?
Yes.
Okay.
Just yes.
It's only,
Okay,
yeah, okay.
But if your data's good, I mean, when I say data, if the data, your job profile, your job, whatever, you know, if it's like everything, if what you put in is garbage, you're not going to get a good outcome, right? So if what you're comparing, your job matching information and your JDs and stuff,
yes.
you know, then it will work much better. So if you've got that right, you've got your job architecture right, yes.
Yes.
In principle,
Agree.
yes.
Yes. All right, we are coming to the end of today's webinar. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us. We are very happy that you were able to participate and attend the session today. I hope we brought you value. I think it was interesting to see that even when we all agree in a general direction, there's always a little bit of a difference between our points of view. And I think this is what makes the beauty of this work that we do in the reward space. So thank you, everybody, for attending. And maybe we will see you in another webinar one day. Thank you so much. And thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sandrine.